beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. So we actually are almost finished here with the standards of clinical practice. And so we were going over and we left off at private practice. So I'm going to go through everything like referral, acceptance, assessment, treatment planning, implementation, termination, education, supervision. But the thing is that for every population mentioned, everything is the same. I'm just going to go over it so that way you guys kind of get a little refresher every video, or every 2 videos, I guess. So here we go. Standard 1. So for private practice, actually it doesn't have anything like, because every single other one had like a little paragraph explaining. This one doesn't have a little paragraph explaining, so I guess it's supposed to be at your discretion. Okay, here we go. I set my timer. Okay, so specific standards of private practice. Music therapists will also adhere to other applications of music therapy services. A music therapist responds to referral and requests, accepts or denies case. A client may be a candidate for music therapy when cognitive, which is the process of thinking, communicative, psychological, which is behavior and the mind, educational, social, physiological needs may need services. A client may be referred to an initial music therapy assessment by the music therapist, members of the discipline or agency, self, parents, guardians. The final decision to accept the music therapy assessment will be made by the music therapist. The music therapist will provide acknowledgement to the referral source. Prior to giving services, the music therapist will enter into a mutual acceptance service contract, and the contrast will be frequency of sessions, length of session, projected length of music therapy services, and terms of payment. A music therapy will adopt a fee schedule at which fair and appropriate to the professional services rendered. I'm gonna actually explore this a little bit more. I guess I always thought of having a private practice as a music therapist, and then as a physician, of course, thought of having a private practice, but I don't know. It's not for me. And in this particular stage of my life, it is not for me. I know, I say no to the man. You would think I'd want to be my own boss, but I don't. My Invisalign's kind of bothering me. I have to shave it down. But yeah, so in terms of private practice in music therapy, like, let's just explore that for a second. So there's a couple of like wellness centers that have music therapists. And then there's a couple of music therapists who have their own practice, maybe like a small office in New York or a small medical practice, and they practice music therapy. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Grey's Anatomy, but there's an episode where they show more of a holistic healthcare setting, and this would be considered a private practice, even though it looks kind of large. But if you think about like the departments in this particular facility, I could see it being a private practice. So when you're in charge of a private practice, you wear many hats, and I think that's why personally working in a private practice is not for me at the moment, because I want my cake and I want to eat it too. Meaning that I want a job, but I also want to be a mother and I want to have a family. Am I going to be a stay-at-home mom? No, not at all. I'm definitely going to have a nanny. But the point that I'm trying to make is that I don't want to live at work. I understand as a physician you do live at work, but there's a difference between like living at work and having your own office and living at work at a hospital. There's a difference. So in terms of private practice, these are the positives. You get all the freedom, right? So you can have like 4 sessions a week with one client if you really wanted to. You could have like 30-minute sessions again if you really wanted to. And you can come up with payment or reimbursement. You can get whatever clients you want. Do you want to have like a mix of children and adults? You know, do you want to have just children? You kind of get the flexibility, and then you also get the flexibility sort of your schedule. I mean, it really does depend on the client. Most of the time, if they're children, they want to come on Saturdays for some, I don't know why. I don't know how many times we're going to have to tell these people, but like, I have no idea like why parents take their kids like to things early morning on Saturdays, like swimming lessons, for example, because the gym by me, they have swimming lessons, and every Saturday at like 9 a.m. it's like packed with swimming lesson parents and kids, and I don't understand. As an adult, I will never ever take my children to a early Saturday thing. Okay, the only thing I'm doing on a Saturday early is going to the gym or sleeping. I'm definitely not taking you to music therapy nor swimming lessons. But the problem with having your private practice is you do have to work with insurance companies. You do have to create a fee schedule. All doctors' offices have fee schedules. All dental offices have fee schedules. Hospitals have fee schedules. And it's already pre-planned. And then they have a whole billing and coding department that goes through the fee schedules and makes sure that there's authorization for the insurance. When you own your own practice, you kind of have to do all that. You can hire out, but you're going to go into the red because you have to make money before you start hiring out, just to let you guys know. So that's like the downfall. Assessment. Client will be assessed by the music therapist psychologically, cognitively, communicative, social, physiological functioning, and they'll focus on the client's needs and strengths, response to music, musical skills, and musical preferences. You are going to have to do more of an assessment if it's a private practice and the client doesn't already have like an established music therapy or goal setting. Explore the client's culture. You will have the flexibility to do this in a private practice. Music therapy assessment methods will be appropriate for the client's chronological age, diagnoses, functioning level, and culture. You won't necessarily be, because I've gotten questioned like, why are you playing this old man when this client is 50 years old? So I've gotten, but and then I always have to argue like, oh, the client is actually mentally 5 years old, you know? But in a private practice, you won't have to like explain yourself as much if you're the boss. Interpretation and test results will be based on criteria. Music therapy assessment procedures and results will become a part of the client's file. You'll accept the client for music therapy services. We have results and conclusions. Implementation of music therapy assessment. When assessment indicates the client needs other services, the music therapist will make an appropriate referral. Music therapy assessment will include the client's current diagnoses and the history to address the client's level of functioning. Treatment planning, standard 3. Music therapists will prepare an individualized program. They'll help the client attain and maximize functioning level. They'll comply with state regulations. They'll figure out the frequency, duration, and type of music therapy involvement. You got goals and objectives. So these are a little bit more laid back in a private practice if you're the owner. Specify procedures. So what type of music, instruments, provide a periodic evaluation. In this regard, you might have to create your own sort of way of judging goals. Optimize according to the best judgment of music therapists, program planning, and principles of normal growth and development. Change to meet the priority needs of the client during a crisis intervention. I think that's like most important in all aspects comply with infection control procedures, because usually in a private practice you don't necessarily have a higher up organization looking down on you. So sometimes people get sloppy. Incorporate medical precautions as necessary. Implementation. A music therapist will deliver services according to the written program plan. They'll strive for the highest level of musical involvement. They'll reflect on their abilities. They'll appropriate music therapy materials. They'll make effort to ensure quality of client care. They'll use recent safety and infection control practices. They'll maintain close communication with others involving the client, record, schedule, and procedures used in music therapy treatment, evaluate client response periodically, incorporate results of evaluations in further treatment, consider the psychological effects of termination separation. So the termination is going to be, I think, more prominent in private practice. So we have documentation. The music therapist will document the client's referral, music therapy, assessment, placement, treatment planning, and ongoing process. The music therapist will document the client's level of functioning. The documentation of process will describe significant intervention techniques. In documentation, the music therapist will write objective, professional style, observable client responses. You always want to make sure that your documentation is objective. Don't include anything subjective. Include the date, signature, and professional status. Place documentation in the client's file. A music therapist will document information for consistency. The music therapist will document referrals made from other sources. We'll do a periodic evaluation. They will document each session with the client and the client's payment for services. I'm going to stop at payment for services because, payment, money, we're speaking my language. I just moved you. Okay. So, here's the thing. I always advocate for $30 an hour as a music therapist at a facility. When you're an independent contractor, yet again, an independent contractor at a facility, you need to double it to 60, because whenever you're an independent contractor, half of your salary, half of your hourly pay gets put towards gas, car, insurance, travel, healthcare, taxes. So that's why it actually, in some regard, it ends up costing more to be an independent contractor. That's why the company needs to pay you more, because they're not taking money out for your taxes. They're not giving you health or dental insurance, so you have to pay for that on your own. And so that's why an independent contractor working for a facility needs to make double the amount that you would make if you were working in a facility. Okay, so 30 if you're in a facility, that's the general rule that I follow. And then 60 if you're working independently but for a company. If you're a private practice individual, and I'm just basing this off of voice lessons, you're going to end up charging these clients $100 plus to some degree, because not only do you have to make sure that you pay taxes and health insurance and car insurance and malpractice insurance, you're also, that's a big one, malpractice insurance. You also have to make sure that if you have any employees, you're able to get them health insurance. You're able to pay the rent of the building that you're having these sessions in. You're able to pay for all the equipment. And you have to make sure that you're covered through certain insurance companies, which also requires the pre-authorization. And The list goes on and on. So like the thing is that when you have a private practice, it costs, like, yes, you get a lot of money, but it also costs a lot of money to have a private practice. So you need to charge clients accordingly. And I say like 100 plus. And some people are going to be turned off by that, especially if you don't take insurance. But that's why, like, when you take insurance, that's another thing, is you have to make sure that the insurance company pays for the services. Because a lot of times at our office, for example, we'll do a limited evaluation and it costs $130 about for a limited evaluation. And because it's a 1 hour, well, actually, no, it's 30 minutes worth of our time. And then we have to clean the room and all that stuff. So that being said, when we send that out to insurance companies, sometimes insurance companies will pay the whole $130, and other times they won't, and they'll be like, no, we're only going to give you $30. You charging $130 is ridiculous, so knock it off, and then you have to write off the $100. So then theoretically you're out of $100. So the point that I'm trying to make is that it's very easy to go bankrupt in private practice, and a lot of people think that bankruptcy means that you're not making enough revenue. Not necessarily. You're not making enough revenue to balance out how much it costs to run the business. So whenever you're doing private practice, you have to make sure that you understand how much it costs for the business to be open, for like the facility to have the lights turned on, for the facility to have the heat or the air conditioner running. How much does that all cost? How much does it cost to rent the building? And then you have to figure out all the people. How much are you going to pay these people? Because you better be paying them darn good or they're not going to want to work for you. Then you have to make sure that the insurance pays accordingly, so that way you don't have to write off $100 every single time you have clients. So there's just a lot that goes into it. So when you're choosing how much the services are, don't follow what other people do. You have to figure out what's best for your business. You have to figure out how much it costs your business to run, like the building to run. How much does it cost for all the staff and the building to run? How much is insurance going to pay? How much does it actually cost me? And then how much should I charge clients? My mother always told me that, also another thing to keep in mind, my mother told me that if a product costs you a certain amount, so let's say it costs $1 to make this shirt, it costs $1. Well, then you need to charge people 3 times that price. So I would charge $3 for this shirt. And the same thing, if it costs $100 to run the facility with the staff, which tends to happen, then you need to charge the clients $300. And I know it's a lot, but that's what you gotta do. And because like you can't be using your savings account to like back up this project, okay? It's a lot. This is why I'm not really a big fan of private practice. Okay, termination of services. This is standard 6. A music therapist will terminate music therapy services when the client has attained stated goals. This is most important in a private practice. So further optimize goals of individual music therapy treatment planning, coordinate the individual treatment planning with other services received by the client, allow sufficient time for approval, coordination, and efficient implementation whenever possible, summarize the client's progress and functioning level. Continuing education. This is also really important because you need to make sure that your practice is authorized in addition to you and your staff. So again, like you're going to have to do basic life support or CPR training for your staff. That's another fee. So continuing education. It is the responsibility for music therapists to maintain knowledge of current developments in research. Music therapists in a private practice will maintain knowledge of current developments in research, theory, and techniques concerning specific client receiving music therapy services. So that's where, like I said, CPR falls into that category. Obviously, current developments, we all need to take CPR now, right? It's starting to rain outside. The music therapist will contribute to the education of others regarding the use and benefits of music. Then we have supervision. If you are owning your own practice, you will definitely be supervising other people. It is the responsibility of the music therapist to seek and participate in supervision on a regular basis. Types of supervision may include, but are not limited to, observation, peer review, verbal feedback, group supervision, individual supervision, music-based supervision. Music therapists may seek supervision from other music therapists. I'm almost done. It is the responsibility of the music therapist to provide supervision and maintain current knowledge of development and research theory techniques. Music therapists must be familiar with the current federal and state local laws. Music therapists must provide supervision required by the AMTA standards. Music therapy will provide supervision, will complete any necessary documentation. Music therapists will provide supervision, will keep all supervision content confidential. So in terms of supervision with a private practice, it's always good to kind of work with a couple different businesses and sort of get an idea of how they run their business. And this is like what we do in business school, is we look at different industries. So you want to look at doctors' offices, in particular maybe pediatrics if you're working with children, or you might want to look into like other wellness practices that are independent private practices. So maybe you want to do like a holistic practice, a doctor of osteopathic medicine private practice, a medical doctor practice, and then maybe another music therapy private practice. And you want to actually research and come up with a plan and figure out like what these people are doing. What's their method to their madness? You know, can I imitate that? Can I adapt it? How should I make my business different? And then you have to check out how those businesses are doing over a course of time. So you do need the statistics, you do need the financial reports, you do need to see how much revenue they're making daily, monthly, 6 months, yearly, you know, so then that way you can plan accordingly. Overall, money talks, okay? And when people say money talks, they always think of people paying other people to do things. And in that regard, yeah, money talks in that way. But if you calculate money correctly in regard to developing a private practice, and you see that, 4 people in my industry have a private practice and they're all going down south, then that's where money talks. Don't do a private practice. Maybe all 4 of them are doing really, really well. Maybe 2 of them are doing great and 2 of them aren't. The point that I'm trying to make is that money talks in the sense of it will tell you if this is a good idea or a bad idea. You just really need to do the research. Just because you have money to start a business does not mean you should. Believe me, I've seen too many medical practices go downhill, change names, buy new buildings because these people have money to spend and they want to start their own practice, but they didn't do the research and they didn't know the business behind starting their own practice. And then they end up changing the name of the practice and it just looks bad. Don't make that mistake. All right, we got wellness. I think this might be the last Yes, this is the last category. So even though we're going to go over 25 minutes, I'm just going to go through because I'm not going to read the whole thing again. I'm just going to do what's important. So we have wellness, and we have the second paragraph right here. Music therapy in wellness involves specialized use of music to enhance quality of life, maximize well-being and potential, and increase self-awareness in individuals seeking music therapy services. The problem with working, I'm not reading this out loud. The problem with working in a wellness center is they will want you to be a music therapist to work in this wellness center, but then you don't have the job title music therapist. You're often a wellness therapist or a program coordinator or, I don't know, they think of very creative ways to talk about whatever you do. But you're usually not considered a music therapist, just like telling you straight up. It's not like that all the time, but sometimes it is. So again, referral, assessment, it is all the same. I'm trying to see assessment. It doesn't even look like there's anything different when you work in a wellness center. Like, it doesn't have, any goals. Because there probably aren't any goals. No. I did shadow a psychologist in a wellness center. So, in this particular setting, they had an acupuncturist, they had a massage therapist, they had a creative arts therapist, they had 2 psychologists, and 1 psychiatrist. So that's what I mean by you might not be actually a music therapist title, you might be a creative arts therapist. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but just think about it before you dive in, okay? Moving on, we have documentation, termination, continuing education, supervision, and then last but certainly not least, we have the footnotes. So the footnotes are kind of like definitions here. It talks about what a music therapist is. It talks about intellectual and developmental disabilities. It talks about assessment, treatment planning, professional judgment. Why would you need to define that? Anyway, I'll go through all of them. So, footnote, music therapist. It has here professional music therapist who holds a professional accreditation of an MTBC, RMT, or a CMT. I'm just going to finish this off because we're so close to being done. There's no point in doing a whole nother video. So, yeah. This is correct, but in real life, it's not correct. If you tell people you're a music therapist, they're going to believe that you're a music therapist, especially if you back it up with all the classes I took, all my internship hours. Nobody even knows that we get certified. So it matters in the profession, but it doesn't necessarily matter in real life. Intellectual and developmental disabilities. Refers to one or more conditions of childhood or adolescence which interfered with normal development or adaptive functioning. Then it talks about a chronic mental or physical impairment manifests before the age of 22, and it's limiting in self-care, learning, mobility, self-direction, economic sufficiency, receptive and expressive language, capacity for independent living, and requires lifelong individual plan services. So it talks about the age 22, and for insurance purposes, if you have an acquired injury, sometimes they'll pay for it and sometimes they won't, and it really depends on what the injury is and when you got the injury. So that is important to know as a music therapist if you're planning on working with intellectual or developmental disabilities. And that's also sometimes we'll use different terms like traumatic brain injury, acquired brain injury. That's a difference, right? An intellectual disability, developmental disability. What age did you get your disability at, And it's all because of money. See what I'm talking about? Money talks. Assessment. The process of determining the client's present level of functioning. Screening may be incorporated into this process. Treatment planning, a program of therapeutic or educational intervention, which focuses on specific needs and strengths of the individual client. Best professional judgment. Again, I don't know why they have this as a definition. These people kill me. Music therapists' use of current knowledge that exists in music therapy and relates to fields in making decisions regarding the provision of music therapy services. Why don't you say music therapist, best professional judgment? Why do you have to say best professional judgment? Whatever. Screening. an intake procedure where the music therapist meets with clients to determine whether or not formal assessment and treatment are indicated. Appropriate norms, standardized tests who interpret or are based on data derived from normal populations are generally not beneficial for program planning. No duh. No duh. Why do we take like 30 minutes to do an assessment? Like, goal. This is important. A projective goal of a treatment plan. Goals are often stated in broad terms as opposed to an objective, which is more specific. Objective 1 of a series of progressive, they're not always progressive, but whatever, accomplishments leading towards a goal that can be obtained. It may include conditions under which the expectation outcome occurs. So objective is more of a measurable, I'm just going to rephrase this. An objective is more measurable. It's more obtainable. It's more realistic as to what's going on each therapy session. I don't know why it says here that it's a progressive accomplishment, because it's not always. Sometimes we're maintaining. And I don't know why it talks about goal leading toward goal attainment. It should be directed to goal attainment. Leading towards implies that we're improving something, and in some cases we're not. In some cases we're maintaining. See why these people get on my nerves? I'm going to do a whole video exposed, just to let you guys all know. Evaluation, the review of the client status in reference to the program plan and goals, which consideration given to the appropriateness or modification of the plan. Oh, and don't even tell me that best professional judgment is on here twice. I'm over it. Safety, avoidance or harm of the structured care process. And this has a long paragraph. It's not necessarily important. Like, they talk about OSHA in your settings. They'll talk about the CDC. They should at least. They'll talk about the safety in regards to clients. Sometimes in certain settings, they'll have like a green team where they'll go over like what's going on and how to handle a crisis. So this is just a basic outcome, but like each session, each place will go over it. Ah, yes! Yes, we did it! Woo! We got through all the standards of clinical practice. Oh, thank the Lord. That was really painful. Just reflecting off of it. That was so painful. And I have lots to say, but you're going to have to stay tuned for the next video to check it out. Okay, talk to you guys later. Bye!